Definitions: the hidden rules you did not know you were following. Before an event can mean something to you, your human operating system already contains definitions. A definition is an underlying rule about what something is, what it represents, how it works, and what consequences should be expected from it. These definitions provide the framework through which events are interpreted. When something happens, the system draws from those existing rules to determine what the event means. That is why definitions sit underneath meaning. Most definitions are not consciously announced. A person does not usually wake up and formally declare, "Beginning today, disagreement will mean abandonment." The definition may have been accepted much earlier through experience, observation, teaching, repetition, or personal conclusion. Once accepted, it begins operating quietly. Disagreement means danger. Rest means laziness. Visibility means exposure. Success means pressure. A boundary means rejection. Needing help means weakness. Being misunderstood means loss of control. Another person's disappointment means you have done something wrong. These are not merely descriptions. They are operating rules. They tell the human operating system how to interpret events and how to respond. This is why definitions are among the most influential parts of human organization. You may believe you are reacting directly to reality when you are actually reacting to the definition through which reality is being interpreted. Consider a person who receives criticism. The observable event is that another person has expressed dissatisfaction, disagreement, or corrective information. But what does criticism mean? To one person, criticism means, "Here is information I can examine." To another person, it means, "I have failed." To another, it means, "I am being controlled." To another, it means, "I am about to be rejected." The words may be identical. The definition changes the experience. If criticism is defined as information, the person may remain curious. If it is defined as humiliation, shame may appear. If it is defined as attack, defensiveness may appear. If it is defined as abandonment beginning, panic may appear. The reaction follows the rule. This does not mean the definition is always incorrect. Some criticism is useful. Some is manipulative. Some is careless. Some is hostile. Some reveals genuine incompatibility. The purpose is not to place every form of criticism into one harmless category. The purpose is to recognize that the individual's operating definition begins influencing the response before the situation has been fully evaluated. A definition tells the system what kind of event is occurring. Once the category has been assigned, the rest of the system begins organizing around it. This is why definitions can feel like facts. They have often been operating for so long that the distinction between the event and the rule applied to it disappears. A person may say, "Of course saying no is selfish," but that is not an observable fact. It is a definition of what refusal means. Another person may define saying no as honest information about availability. The behavior is the same. The rule is different. Someone may say, "If I slow down, I will become unproductive." This may feel completely obvious to them, but the statement contains a definition of productivity. Productivity has been defined as constant activity. Rest has been defined as interruption. The person may never examine whether rest contributes to focus, clarity, sustainability, or better work. The original definition has already settled the matter. This is one reason hidden definitions are difficult to recognize. They do not usually feel like beliefs. They feel like reality. A person does not say, "I have a belief that conflict is dangerous." They say, "Conflict is dangerous." They do not say, "I have defined uncertainty as catastrophe." They say, "Something bad is going to happen." They do not say, "I have accepted the rule that my worth depends on being useful." They say, "I cannot let everyone down." The definition has become invisible because it is being experienced as the obvious explanation. Altus examines definitions because they determine what the system is allowed to conclude. If the definition is, People who love me should always understand me. Then misunderstanding becomes evidence of insufficient love. If the definition is, a healthy relationship can include misunderstanding and repair, the same event becomes something that can be clarified. If the definition is, confidence means never feeling uncertain, then every moment of uncertainty becomes proof that confidence is absent. If confidence is defined as the ability to act clearly while uncertainty is present, a different range of choices becomes available. The definition establishes the requirement. The requirement determines whether an experience appears successful, dangerous, acceptable, or impossible. This can be seen clearly in the way people define safety. For one person, safety means, nothing unexpected happens. For another, safety means, I can respond when something unexpected happens. These definitions produce very different operating systems. If safety requires complete predictability, uncertainty itself becomes a threat. The person may attempt to control schedules, conversations, relationships, outcomes, and other people's responses. Because complete certainty is rarely available, the system remains vigilant. Safety is always postponed until every variable is known. If safety is defined as the capacity to remain present, gather information, make choices, and respond appropriately, uncertainty may still be uncomfortable without automatically becoming danger. The second definition does not promise that harmful events cannot occur. It places safety partly in the person's ability to engage reality, rather than entirely in reality remaining perfectly controlled. A definition can therefore enlarge or reduce the number of choices a person perceives. Suppose someone defines success as achieving a specific result without mistakes, delay, criticism, or uncertainty. That definition makes success extremely narrow. Anything less becomes failure. Learning becomes evidence of inadequacy. Revision becomes proof that the first attempt was not good enough. Criticism becomes a threat to the identity of being successful. The person may procrastinate because beginning creates the possibility of failing the definition. They may abandon projects that are developing normally because normal development includes imperfection. The visible issue appears to be motivation. The hidden rule may be that success is only real when it arrives without a human process. A more functional definition might be, success is continued movement in a preferred direction while learning from the information produced. This does not guarantee a particular outcome. It changes what the process is allowed to contain. Mistakes can become information. Revision can become part of development. Temporary uncertainty no longer automatically cancels the direction. The new definition supports participation. Definitions also determine what a person believes an emotion means. Anxiety may be defined as proof that danger is present. Guilt may be defined as proof that wrongdoing has occurred. Sadness may be defined as weakness. Anger may be defined as loss of control. Excitement may be defined as irresponsibility. When emotions are given these meanings, the person may respond to the emotion as though it were an external command. They feel anxious, so they stop. They feel guilty, so they reverse the boundary. They feel sad, so they judge themselves. They feel angry, so they assume the situation must be harmful. The emotion is real. But the definition of the emotion still requires examination. Anxiety may indicate danger. It may also indicate uncertainty, unfamiliarity, anticipation, or an old expectation becoming active. Guilt may follow wrongdoing. It may also appear when a person stops following a familiar rule. Someone who has defined goodness as unlimited availability may feel guilty for resting. The guilt does not necessarily prove that rest is harmful. It may show that the old definition has been challenged. This distinction can be stabilizing. It allows the person to respect emotional information without automatically treating every feeling as a final verdict. The question becomes, what have I defined this feeling to mean? Suppose someone begins setting boundaries and feels intense guilt. Their immediate conclusion may be, this boundary is wrong. But perhaps the hidden definition is, if another person is disappointed, I have failed them. That rule gives the other person's emotional response authority over the person's choices. As long as no one is disappointed, the person may believe they are behaving correctly. The moment someone objects, the person assumes they must reverse course. A more accurate definition might be, another person's disappointment tells me that they preferred a different answer. It does not automatically determine whether my answer was wrong. This definition allows feedback to remain information. The person can still examine how the boundary was communicated, whether it is appropriate, and whether the relationship needs adjustment. But disappointment no longer settles the entire question. Definitions also create identities. If responsibility is defined as preventing everyone around you from experiencing discomfort, the identity may become, I am responsible for keeping everyone stable. If strength is defined as never needing help, the identity may become, I must handle everything alone. If love is defined as endless access, the identity may become, I must always be available to prove that I care. The identity follows logically from the rule. This is why identity change often requires definition change. A person may attempt to become someone with boundaries while continuing to define boundaries as rejection. They may attempt to become confident while defining confidence as perfect certainty. They may attempt to become independent while defining independence as betrayal. The desired identity conflicts with the operating rules. This creates internal tension. The person may think, I know what I want to become, but it does not feel like me. What feels like me is often what is compatible with the definitions that have been practiced. If those definitions change, identity can begin changing as well. This does not mean selecting a new identity as a performance. It means allowing a more accurate rule to support a different way of being. Imagine a person who has always defined kindness as saying yes. They decide to become more boundaried. At first, saying no feels unkind. The person may conclude that boundaries are incompatible with who they are. But the conflict may come from the definition of kindness. If kindness means never disappointing anyone, then almost every limit will appear unkind. If kindness means participating honestly without unnecessary harm or deception, a boundary can become part of kindness. The person is not required to become cold in order to stop being endlessly available. The definition expands. The identity gains more options. Definitions often work in clusters. One rule supports another. For example, conflict is dangerous. Anger means rejection. Rejection proves I am unworthy. Being unworthy means I will be alone. Now, a minor disagreement is not merely a disagreement. It appears to threaten connection, identity, and future survival all at once. The visible reaction may seem larger than the immediate event because the event has activated an entire chain of definitions. The person may become urgent, apologetic, defensive, silent, or desperate to repair something before they even know whether damage has occurred. The system is not responding only to the present conversation. It is responding to every consequence contained in the definitions. This is why telling someone to calm down may not change the response. From inside the operating rules, the person believes something much larger is happening. Stability begins when the rules can be separated. Disagreement is not automatically anger. Anger is not automatically rejection. Rejection is not automatically proof of worthlessness. And the end of one relationship is not automatically the end of all connection. Each definition can be examined rather than allowing the entire chain to activate as one unquestioned conclusion. The purpose is not to convince the person that nothing painful can happen. Relationships can end. People can reject one another. Disagreement can reveal serious incompatibility. The stabilizing distinction is that an event does not automatically contain every larger conclusion the person has attached to it. Definitions can also be learned through repetition. If someone repeatedly experiences attention followed by criticism, attention may become defined as dangerous. If asking for help repeatedly leads to ridicule, help-seeking may become defined as exposure. If emotional expression is repeatedly punished, honesty may become defined as unsafe. These definitions may have been reasonable responses to the environment in which they developed. The system learned what appeared to predict consequences. Later, the definition may continue operating even when the environment has changed. The person may enter a respectful relationship and still conceal needs. They may work with supportive people and still avoid asking questions. They may receive an opportunity and still withdraw from visibility. The old definition is applying an earlier rule to a present situation. Recognizing this does not require blaming the past or denying the original experience. It means asking whether the rule is still universally accurate. A definition can be historically understandable without remaining appropriate for every present condition. This is where conscious choice begins to expand. The person may not immediately feel safe expressing a need, but they can notice that the current person has not behaved like the earlier people. They can gather information gradually. They can test clearer communication in a reasonable context. They can observe whether the old prediction is occurring now. New experience can begin modifying the rule. Definitions are also inherited through language. Common phrases may carry operating assumptions. You have to earn love. Rest is for people who have finished their work. Never let them see weakness. Family comes first, no matter what. Successful people do not complain. Good people forgive everything. Strong people handle things alone. These statements may be repeated as wisdom without being examined as definitions. What does it mean to earn love? Can work ever truly be finished? Is vulnerability always weakness? Does loyalty require permanent access? Does forgiveness require continued participation? Does strength exclude support? The language sounds familiar. Familiarity can make a definition appear unquestionable, but an inherited rule is still a rule. It can be examined for accuracy, consequence, and compatibility. Some definitions are overly broad. One painful event becomes a permanent law. A person is betrayed and concludes, "Trust is dangerous." They fail at one project and conclude, "I am not capable." They are rejected by one group and conclude, "I do not belong anywhere." They set one boundary that causes conflict and conclude, "Boundaries destroy relationships." The original event matters, but the definition expands beyond the available evidence. The person has taken one outcome and converted it into a universal operating rule. This may appear protective. If trust is always dangerous, the person can avoid betrayal by avoiding closeness. If belonging is impossible, they can avoid the pain of attempting connection. If boundaries always destroy relationships, they can avoid testing whether a relationship can tolerate honesty. The rule reduces uncertainty. It also reduces possibility. Definitions often survive because certainty feels safer than openness. Even a painful conclusion can provide a stable explanation. "I always fail" is painful, but it eliminates the uncertainty of discovering what might happen through continued effort. "No one can be trusted" is isolating, but it eliminates the uncertainty of discernment. "People always leave" is painful, but it allows the person to prepare for departure before connection fully develops. The definition offers predictability. That predictability can feel protective. This is why a replacement definition must offer more than a pleasant contradiction. If someone believes "no one can be trusted," simply repeating "everyone is trustworthy" would be inaccurate and potentially unsafe. A more precise definition might be, "Trust is developed through observation, consistency, and appropriate boundaries." This definition does not require blind trust. It restores a process. The person is no longer forced to choose between total distrust and immediate vulnerability. They can gather information. They can allow trust to develop according to evidence. The new definition increases discernment rather than eliminating caution. Similarly, if someone believes, "Failure proves I am incapable," the replacement does not need to be, "I can never fail." A more functional definition might be, "An unsuccessful result gives me information about this approach, timing, preparation, or fit." This does not promise success. It prevents one result from becoming a complete identity sentence. A good operating definition should be accurate enough to live. It should not require the person to deny evidence, emotion, consequence, or physical reality. It should create clarity rather than fantasy. This is why Altus does not simply exchange negative statements for positive statements. The issue is not whether the words sound encouraging. The issue is what rule they establish. A definition that is pleasant but inaccurate will not create stable organization. A definition that is precise can support more conscious participation. Consider the difference between everything always works out perfectly and I can respond to the information and choices available as events unfold. The first statement attempts to control the outcome. The second establishes participation. Or compare. No one can hurt me. With I can recognize harmful behavior, respond appropriately, and maintain boundaries. The first denies vulnerability. The second supports agency. Definitions become more useful when they describe what the person can actually organize. This matters within the parallel reality model because definitions contribute to compatibility. A definition influences identity, state, perception, expectation, choice, and action. Those elements express an experiential direction. Suppose a person defines opportunity as risk. When an opportunity appears, the system prepares for loss. The person notices possible failure more quickly than possible expansion. They expect embarrassment. They delay action. The opportunity may pass. The result then appears to prove that opportunities do not work for them. The definition participated in the direction. Now suppose opportunity is defined as a possibility I can examine without being required to accept. The person no longer has to treat every opportunity as either total commitment or immediate danger. They can gather information. They can consider fit. They can say yes, no, or not yet. The definition creates more choices. More choices create different possible directions. The definition does not force a result. It changes the person's participation in the possibilities. Definitions also influence time. A person may define slow progress as no progress. That rule makes gradual development invisible. They may abandon a process that is working because it is not producing dramatic evidence quickly enough. Another person may define delay as failure. They interpret every interruption as proof that the direction is wrong. Someone else may define a temporary return of an old pattern as complete regression. They ignore the changes in awareness, recovery, and choice because the old reaction appeared at all. These definitions affect persistence. If progress only counts when it is immediate and complete, nearly every real human process will appear unsuccessful. A more accurate definition might be, progress is increasing consistency with a preferred direction. This allows change to be observed through choices, recovery, communication, and repetition, not only through perfect external results. A person may still have an old reaction while responding differently afterward. They may still feel fear while taking a compatible action. They may still experience uncertainty while refusing to create a catastrophic conclusion. The old signal appeared. The direction changed. The definition of progress determines whether that change is recognized. Another important area is the definition of control. Many people define control as making sure the outcome occurs exactly as expected. That definition creates enormous pressure because other people, systems, bodies, circumstances, and timing cannot be completely controlled. When reality does not comply, the person may experience helplessness. A different definition might be, control means directing my own participation as clearly as possible. This does not give the person control over every outcome. It clarifies what is actually within their range of choice. They can choose what they communicate. They can choose whether to participate. They can choose what boundary to establish. They can choose how to respond to new information. They cannot guarantee another person's agreement. They cannot force every opportunity to continue. They cannot remove all uncertainty. The definition of control becomes more realistic and less fragile. This is not surrender. It is precision. The same precision applies to acceptance. Acceptance is often defined as approval. A person may resist accepting reality because they believe acceptance means saying that what happened was good, fair, or acceptable. But acceptance can be defined as recognizing what is currently true so that I can respond to it accurately. Under that definition, a person can accept that a relationship has ended without approving of how it ended. They can accept that another person is unreliable without pretending unreliability is harmless. They can accept that a plan failed without defining themselves as a failure. Acceptance becomes accurate orientation. It stops being confused with endorsement. Definitions become especially important when spiritual or metaphysical ideas are involved. A person may define alignment as feeling pleasant all the time. They may define a difficult event as proof that they have failed spiritually. They may define conscious creation as controlling every external condition. They may define compassion as tolerating harmful behavior. They may define forgiveness as restoring access. These definitions can create confusion and instability. Alignment does not require emotional performance. A difficult event does not automatically establish spiritual failure. Conscious participation does not erase the choices of other people or the conditions of physical reality. Compassion does not require the removal of discernment. Forgiveness does not automatically determine whether a relationship continues. Clear definitions protect the model from being used to deny evidence or override appropriate boundaries. A useful definition should increase clarity, responsibility, and choice. It should not demand that a person abandon reality in order to preserve the definition. When examining a definition, begin with one word or situation that carries a strong reaction. Perhaps the word is conflict, success, failure, rest, love, safety, responsibility, rejection, visibility, change. Ask, what does this mean to me? Then complete the sentence. To me, this means. Do not answer with the socially acceptable definition. Use the rule that appears to be operating. For example, to me, conflict means someone is about to leave. To me, success means more people will depend on me. To me, rest means I am wasting time. To me, visibility means becoming a target. To me, saying no means I am selfish. The answer reveals the instruction. Then ask, what does this definition cause me to expect? If conflict means abandonment, you expect loss. If success means pressure, you may avoid growth. If rest means failure, you remain active beyond your limits. If visibility means danger, you hide. If saying no means selfishness, you continue saying yes. The expectation shows the direction produced by the rule. Finally ask, is this definition always accurate, or is it one interpretation I learned? This question does not require immediate replacement. It simply creates distance between the person and the rule. The definition becomes something being examined rather than something speaking as unquestioned reality. A beginning replacement definition should be simple, precise, and usable. For example, conflict can reveal disagreement, incompatibility, or information. It does not automatically determine the future of the relationship. Success can increase responsibility, but I can choose the conditions under which I participate. Rest is part of sustainable participation. Visibility allows others to respond. Their response does not determine my identity. Saying no communicates my availability. It does not automatically define my character. These definitions do not guarantee comfort. They create more accurate options. The purpose of examining definitions is not to create perfect sentences. It is to discover the hidden rule organizing experience. When the rule becomes visible, meaning becomes easier to understand. The emotional state becomes less mysterious. The available choices can expand. And the person can begin deciding whether the rule is compatible with the direction they prefer. Definitions are the hidden rules beneath meaning. They determine what an event is allowed to represent, what consequences are expected, and which responses appear necessary. When definitions remain invisible, their conclusions can feel self-evident. When definitions become visible, they can be evaluated. And when an event occurs, those definitions are applied to what happened. That application produces meaning. Meaning is where the underlying rule becomes an instruction about the experience occurring now. Stay stable. Pay attention. Reality is speaking.